As a practitioner, you work hard every day to take care of the health and well-being of your patients. You work for long hours caring for others and running your business. So who's caring for you? And more importantly, what are you doing to care for yourself, to ensure that you can be at your best every day for your family and your clients? Well, this program is devoted to exploring practitioner self-care. And today, we're talking to Dr. Wendy Davis. Dr. Davis is a naturopathic doctor who for over 16 years has run a busy family practice. She has a special passion for the properties of tea, and as you may guess, that's one of the reasons that she has a special place in my heart. Welcome, Dr. Davis.
Thank you.
Why don't we start? Tell us a little bit about your practice and where are you based?
Sure. So I'm practicing now in Windsor, Saskatchewan, which is a teeny little village, actually, southeast of Regina. I practice there primarily. I also practice one day a week in a city called Estevan, which is about an hour and a half from here. Those are the two places that I primarily practice.
Okay. And have you seen a change in the who's showing up at your clinic? I mean, we all know that we've gone through an extraordinary year this last year. What changes have you seen in your practice during that time?
I mean, it's a little hard to see exactly because I've only been here for about 3 years. So I think the practice is just building organically, but I am seeing, a lot of the same conditions I would have dealt with, but there's this underlying sense of anxiety and just, uncertainty that is sort of, fundamental to everything. So I wouldn't say that I'm seeing that many more cases of anxiety and depression, but I'm just seeing a lot of health concerns that are just a little bit harder to manage because there's just this constant stress that's going on in people's lives.
Right. And how is that affecting you as a practitioner?
It's exhausting. It really is. Yeah, I mean, I come home and I'm pretty wrung out. I'm lucky that I can some days walk home. And so I like to take that time just to sort of decompress because it's a lot. Like, I mean, again, I've been in practice for a number of years, so I can sort of compare. And I would say there's just a lot more energy, I think, that I'm dealing with, if that makes any sense, and sort of just that uncertainty and just people needing hand holding because they're not getting it from their conventional medicine doctors. Like they're not getting, it's just phone calls and there's no face to face. I'm really fortunate. I'm still able to do as much face to face as I can. But yeah, people are just, they just need so much more. So it becomes tiring.
Right. Because you're continually pushing energy out to them all day long, aren't you?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that brings us nicely to the question of, what do you do to take care of yourself? What is your self-care regimen? Maybe you can give us some insight into that.
Sure. So as long as I've been practicing, I take Wednesdays off. So I'm really, as much as I humanly can, that is the day that I'm not off. I'm not, I wish I was sort of sitting down reading a book all day, but I'm just not in patient visits.
Okay.
And so I find that that's how I'm able to, catch up with paperwork and do some research and make consult, with other practitioners, that kind of thing. So I find that important just so it's not that many more evenings and weekends that I'm dedicating, which I do that as well, but just slightly less. So the Wednesdays off is huge. I'm actually going to start target shooting. I have a lot of space out here. So, you have to have your blood pressure down and your breathing down and be very calm. So I feel that, some people meditate and I'll just shoot things. So that'll be part of it.
Right.
Gardening is huge, actually. I love being like hands in the dirt in nature, just, out there. And being in Saskatchewan, we have lots of wind. So it's not always possible for me to, listen to podcasts and multitask when I'm outside. So it's very much like I am there very presently. So that's sort of general. And then others, I'm pretty particular about my diet. I'm really conscious about that and exercise. My background was in kinesiology. So, being physically active is key. And that's something that's sort of a non-negotiable.
Well, you've covered off a couple of things that I want to circle back with. The first one is this idea that you take a day off in your week to tend to your business and not see patients. Is that something that is quite common, do you think, or have you heard of that in other practices?
I was just speaking to a colleague actually in Winnipeg earlier, or I guess last week, and he does the same thing. So I don't think it's common enough, though, and I think it probably started with me because I just wasn't busy enough and when I initially started. And so it seemed like a good midweek break, and it's something that just stuck. But I think it really, if someone yeah, if someone can afford to do it, but I almost think you can't afford not to do it, like taking that,
Right.
because then otherwise we just have so many things to do. It runs into evenings and weekends. So I think it would be, if someone can do it, it would be beneficial, I think.
So an important part of your self-care is to make sure that you devote one day a week to the business, so that on the other days when you're with your patients, you're not worried about the business. And it means that you're not working into the night every night to catch up. And so you can arrive more fresh the next day.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. So something else you said that caught my attention was that for you, diet is so important. And, you know, of course, for most of us working in this field, you know, diet is a key part of what we recommend to our patients. So obviously, hopefully we're following the same protocols. But my question to you is, I know that your practice is in a small town. You called it a village, actually. Yeah. And, you know, villages are not famous for their grocery options. So I'm wondering, just on a practical level, how do you keep your diet to the standard that you want when you're living in a small town or a village?
Well, I agree. It's an hour and a half drive to Regina. So, you know, when we go, we pack cooler bags and we buy a lot. And so it's a lot of produce at that point that we can freeze. We actually raise bison. And so we are fortunate that we have ample supplies of really clean meat, which is crucial. We also have pigs and chickens that occasionally get out, but that's how I can guarantee that at least my protein is generally really clean. And yeah, it's tricky. I'll be growing a lot of my own vegetables and have done in the past, but it is definitely hard. In fact, it's something that as a program that I'm thinking of developing is really working with people in these small towns to sort of focus on, you know, how can you eat not out of a box and how can you eat more, you know, healthy food, fresh produce, that kind of thing. But it is tough, especially at this time of the year when, you know, things are kind of at the end of their season sometimes, but it's tricky. It definitely is. And so it becomes, you know, a lot of things out of the freezer or trucks into the city and you stock up that way. So that is what I miss the most moving from Ontario to here.
So let me ask you this. You talked about clean protein. Could you expand on that a little bit? What does that mean?
For sure. So, I mean, what we do, I mean, bison are a wild animal. So, you know, there's no antibiotics. There's no, you know, they're not processed in a lot of the ways that conventional feedlot beef, chicken, pork are. So, I mean, our chickens are running around outside. Our pigs are running around outside. Like we've got, you know, hundreds of acres where the bison roam. So it's very, not contained. And, you know, I know how the food is processed. I know how they're slaughtered. I know every step of the way. And that's important to me because I really do feel that when it comes to hormone balance, which is what I do a lot of in my practice, you know, if we're getting a lot of synthetic hormones in our foods, that's impacting our health. So even when I was in Ontario, that was something I was really conscious of. And now it's just a little bit easier. But, you know, food is medicine. It truly is. And that, you know, that's the premise of why I developed the tea line. I thought, you know, tea is another form of medicine and, you know, drink your medicine. Great. But the meat, the protein is really important. And that's something that, again, out here, we're actually lucky because we have a lot of cattle farmers. People do have a lot of, you know, we have a lot of space. So people have their own chickens. So from a protein perspective, we're actually quite lucky. It's the fresh produce that isn't really as convenient.
Right. Okay. So let's just change tack a little bit. I mentioned off the top about your passion for tea. And of course, I'm a tea drinker. You can probably tell by my accent. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? And if you could just put it in the context of the business. I understand, you know, we all understand that tea has many medicinal qualities, but you've developed this line of tea and it's one of the cornerstones of your business. And can you talk a little bit about what your thinking was behind that?
Absolutely. I actually went to a conference years and years ago, and it was actually Walter Crinian, who sadly has passed, and he talks so much about detoxification and how that's just so crucial. And I would agree that that's probably a large part of why we see so much chronic illness. And so he initially said, you know, it's 3 cups of green tea and 3 cups of rooibos tea and 3 cups of oolong tea. And I thought to myself, I can't get my patients to drink 2 cups of water, so 9 cups of tea isn't going to happen. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna combine these. So I started making up my own tea blends. And then just got into more hormone balance with my patients and thought, well, geez, like I can put, tea into the tea that balances and works on hormone balance. So that was sort of how it evolved over the last, decade pretty much. And so it's also because, I have patients that they want to do things. Well, I mean, some people want a pill, but some just want another way to sort of bring in health. And so tea works really, really well.
So what does it mean for your business though? That's what I'm trying to get at, because recently we did a talk with Dr. Megan Walker, and she's part of the Clinician Business Labs, and we do a series with her called The Savvy Practitioner. And part of that is to help clinicians develop a differentiation in the marketplace and a niche and a specialty so that they can have more success in marketing their business. And when I saw your website and I saw that your passion for tea, and then I discovered you had developed your own line of tea, can you talk a little bit about what it's meant for your business?
Well, I'm still working on it, because as a full-time practicing naturopathic doctor, it's a lot of work to develop something like this. Like I had no idea. And so it has been a slow work. So right now, is it impacting my my practice or my business significantly? Not yet. It's growing for sure, which is fabulous, but it's something that if I decided to practice part-time or not practice, I could dedicate a lot more time to it, obviously. Right. And it probably could be that, but at this point, it just hasn't grown because I haven't had the time to dedicate to it. So It's something I do as a side, because I have a passion for it. It's just not something that I do probably more than that.
Right. And if other practitioners, perhaps anyone watching today, if they wanted to carry your line of medicinal teas, is that something that you would entertain?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm developing monographs as we speak. And so it is designed for that. Absolutely. And because there's two lines, there's the balance line that is sort of more practitioner specific, whereas the signature line is something that you could almost find in a health food store.
Okay, so any practitioner can connect with you, and you can talk to them about setting them up with your line of teas, right?
Yeah, we have wholesale pricing and that kind of thing.
Great. Well, I mean, to me, that sounds like it is a part of your business that's obviously growing and of interest. And that leads me to another question. Now, I understand that you have a dispensary, which is part of your practice. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about that? And why did you decide to open your own dispensary as opposed to perhaps using a distributor, wholesale distributor? Yeah.
Sure. So I've always done that. When I was in Ontario, I started with it. I actually took over a practice when I first started, and she had a dispensary. So I carried on with that. Definitely living where I live right now, I need to have that as an option for my patients. There is absolutely nowhere for them to get locally good quality supplements at all. It's, the drugstore, or it's, Walmart or Costco in the city. There are a few different health food stores in Regina, but again, that's quite a distance. So just because if I'm treating things acutely, or patients just like the convenience for the most part. And so it's something I've always had. And I feel like I've sort of tailored to working with less companies, but more quality companies, and that I really I know their products.
Right. And was it difficult to set up? I mean, was it difficult to get that thing set up and get it going?
No, I can't even imagine not having it. Actually, it's sort of like my left arm. I use it so frequently. Right. And setting it up was no problem at all. I mean, I think because, again, I transferred everything from Ontario. It wasn't a big deal.
Right. Okay. Well, that's really good to know. So let's get back to the self-care, because that's what we're here to talk about today. Now, you've talked a little bit about working in the garden, and you've talked a little bit about target shooting. So both of those things strike me as being activities where your mind is separate from the physical activity. There's kind of a zen to that. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that and what you use it for? It's almost like a practice, isn't it? It's like a spiritual practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I have tried meditation. I do that very infrequently. But it is just something that it's two things at once. I'm physically active doing something, so it's not just sitting quietly,
Yeah.
but yet you have to be very focused on what you're doing. And so it's not that I'm not thinking about, patient X or supplement Y or what I need to do next Thursday, but it's not focused. So it's like I find sometimes that I have answers come to me when I'm not focusing on them. It's what so many people say when you just sort of relax, things come to you, or when you open your mind. And that's what I find. And so that is a side benefit, but it really is turning off. Like it's not concentrated focus where I'm writing or I'm researching or I'm developing things. It's just fun. It's just an escape.
Yeah. Now, what I've learned in our conversation is that you run a busy practice. You have to go into the city sometimes to get your supplies. You also have an active garden. You have a farm with animals, bison, pigs, and chickens you mentioned. And I believe that you're also a mom.
I'm a stepmom. Yeah, we have three kids.
Right.
Our Dean
Okay.
has 3 kids. So we have them 50% of the time. So a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 12-year-old. So it's
Right.
not, like I'm running around after little people. So they're generally pretty self-sufficient, which is good.
Right. But either way, it seems like your life is incredibly full. So my question to you is, how do you manage your time? Are you a person that needs to put everything into your calendar to make sure you know where you're going? Or are you more of a freestyle, let things happen and I'll deal with them in the moment?
Oh my goodness, no, I am structured, very regimented. I like sticky notes. I think whoever developed them should get a Nobel Peace Prize. I
Right.
like having lists, and I rewrite my to-do lists, and my schedule day to day is very structured. And I like that. I know when a patient's coming, I know when that appointment's over. And I try to do the same with my days off. And, we have a whiteboard in the kitchen. And so everything that is needed goes on that whiteboard. And if, you forget to put granola bars down, you don't get granola bars because I can't remember.
Right.
So it is very organized, which is hard because that's a lot of work too sometimes. And so just to let go and be a free spirit doesn't happen that often, but I don't
Yeah.
think I could do everything if I did.
Right. So basically you're telling me that, structure and routine is also part of your self-care because it allows you to not go crazy, basically. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So just one last question for you. So in that time that is, well, do you have time that is your own time? Do you have time that you make, this is my time?
Yeah, I get up early. I'm usually up at 5:30. And so I go to bed early, but I like that time where nobody else is awake. There's no noises. I don't have to talk to anybody. It's my tea, and I try to journal, or I try not to do any emails or anything like that for the first little while. Like I started to read journals because I didn't want to check any of the social media feeds. And that morning time, I get a good hour and a half on my own, and that is sacred.
Right. And are you a music fan? Do you listen? Are you a reader?
I'm a reader, absolutely.
Any recommendations for us?
Oh, I love Ken Follett. I've read so many of
Ah,
his books recently. I don't know if there's many left. He's great. And then I've actually gone back, and not just for his content, but actually my childhood favorite is The Secret Garden. And so I dug up my old, very, like, the cover fell off, but I'm reading that book again, actually.
well, thank you so much for sharing your secret garden with us today. I really appreciate that you taking the time, and I look forward to speaking to you again sometime on Nutramedica.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, we invite leading natural health clinicians to share their insight on Nutramedica every day. And to get notified about our newest programs, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. If you enjoyed this program, please let us know by liking the video or leaving a comment. We always appreciate your feedback. And as always, I invite you to go ahead and click on the link below the video. You get unlimited access to our entire library of over 200 papers and clinical guidelines. It's well worth it. Simply register as a health professional and you'll get your free access. So that's it from us here at Nutramedica. Thanks for watching today, and we'll see you next time.